Good evening, everybody. At this time, if you're able to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, at this time, we would like to recognize, congratulate, and thank Mr. Anthony Piccone on earning his tenure recognition. We didn't get to that 2 weeks ago, so we wanted to make sure you were all by yourself and you had the thumbs up, and thank you very much. If you want to come forward, we have a little certificate for you. So. All right, at this time, we'll open up the first hearing, privilege of the floor. Just remind everybody to please follow board policy 1230. Please state your name, your address, adhere to our 5-minute policy, and please refrain from using any individual by their first name or last name.
Can you hear me? Okay. Because I can't quite reach the microphone.
It will come down. Hold on.
Okay, can you hear me? My name is Elizabeth Zenner, 800 Riverside Ave, Scotia. Is that all the information you need? So I'm speaking on behalf of some other parents, some other football parents. Other people are probably going to come up and say some other things, so I'll try not to ramble on forever about a lot of things. But you know, with the board's decision last time to not appoint Mr. Barber as the volunteer coach, and then the subsequent resignation of his son, Colton Barber, it obviously caused a lot of upheaval on the team. And at the time, nobody really knew what was going on. My first inclination was somebody posted on Facebook, hey, can somebody explain the Board of Education's decision? And so I tried to find, gee, you know, what happened? What did they decide? What were the reasonings? And I watched the meeting, and so there was not any information in the meeting, so then I followed it up with an email. There was some back and forth, but ultimately I asked some, you know, fairly pointed questions of, you know, what is the process when the board receives complaints that you go through to either verify or refute those, and what is the process for the person, in this case Mr. Barber, to be able to defend himself. Because the one public perception is that he was not given a chance to defend himself, and most of the other parents on the team know that we had no idea that it was even, you know, an issue, because, you know, it's a small town, people talk, rumors spread around whether they're accurate or not, and we kind of felt like if there was something so egregious that the board unanimously felt like this person was not fit to be a volunteer for our team, like, what happened that none of our kids came home talking about, none of the other parents could figure it out, and in the whole string of emails, nobody answered that question. What do you actually do when you receive complaints in order to then be able to formulate an opinion and a judgment to make a decision that affects, you know, the district or the team? And the lack of answers, not only to me personally, but to other people that I heard asked, and then obviously it was in the newspaper, and the newspaper was asking, and there was still a lot of just non-answer. It just kind of leaves everybody to come to their own conclusions, which may or may not be accurate. And it definitely has not made us feel very good about the process, because what if it was, you know, the opposite situation? Let's say 4 or 5 parents do have an issue, or something happens, you know, with somebody on a team or a teacher or any kind of position, and they write in and complain, but, you know, somebody really likes this person, so you're just gonna say, well, I don't trust that account, or I can't, you know, I'm not gonna verify that information, and we're just gonna go ahead and appoint that person. And when then people question, the answer is, well, we don't discuss personnel matters. Like, so it could kind of go either way. In this case, you decided not to have someone, and nobody knows what the complaints were, and according to the person, he had no opportunity to defend himself. But it could easily go in the other direction, which doesn't make people feel very comfortable either. And I know that there's other topics that other people might want to cover, but that's what I wanted to say. Thank you for your time.
Is there anyone else that would like to address the board at this time? Come on, right up.
She's shorter than I am. Hi, my name's Christine Lemp, 1036 Tomahawk Trail, Glenville. I'm here tonight as a parent of a current and former Scotia football player. Initially, I wanted to believe that Coach Barber not being approved at the last meeting was because you were doing what you believed was the best based on the information you have. However, my beliefs have wavered many times over the last 2 weeks. I know that many other people have different opinions regarding Coach Barber, and I'm sorry that those opinions were not asked for prior to the vote. I read the agenda before every meeting and had seen that Coach was on the agenda. It was my assumption as a football parent that it was not a possibility that he would not be approved. If there was an issue of him not being approved, excuse me, why was he allowed to practice with the team all summer and up to that game and being on the sideline of that Friday night game? I understand that you cannot anticipate that I know that you cannot anticipate that with John not being approved, that his son would also leave the program effective immediately. Then unfortunately, Coach Lido had a health crisis. The boys who played their hearts out that Friday lost 3 of their coaches in 24 hours. This is my biggest concern. If the mental health of our students and athletes is supposedly a priority, why did it take the athletic department a week to meet with them and was only to inform them of Lido's resignation? Sorry. The athletic department and administration did not check in with them prior to that. They were lost and upset. Yes, they may be the big football players, but in reality, they are just teenage boys. Our job is to help and guide them and teach them. Not talking about things or acknowledging things makes them fill in the blanks, often with false information. I truly appreciate and thank the remaining coaches that have stepped up, and I pray that they get voted in tonight. Those boys cannot handle another blow to their spirits. They are hanging on the best they can. I'm sorry. The media attention that the football program has gotten is embarrassing. It is nothing that the players or current coaches' behaviors have caused this attention. I truly believe that the athletic department, board, and administration have not put the needs of our children first. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Steve Gerke, 377 Clausen Road. As a parent and a coach for the district, I want to discuss the APP policy, the athletic placement policy or process. We've had several kids through several different sports that have been denied the opportunity to play up to what their potential could be, based on a policy that none of us can really find written down or approved. The policy, from what we've been told, that we use right now, I'm calling it a guideline because I can't find it, is heavily dependent on an athlete's Tanner score. The Tanner score, which is a sexual maturity rating, which I don't see why it has basis in playing sports. It's a subjective score based on a doctor's interpretation of the scale. There's nothing measurable or testable that will come to this determination, and it's holding our athletes back. And it's been proven that a higher level athlete is going to mature sexually later in life because of their body type. The state's requirement per NICED does not require the Tanner score. It allows you to use it as a recommendation along with height, weight, body mass for other athletes that they will be competing against on average. So I'd like to see a policy put in place that would allow us to go more towards what the state has for a requirement as the Tanner score, not a requirement. I can speak personally that I had an athlete this year that was held back for about 3 weeks while they went through a turmoil and eventually was able to get the proper APP placement to play where he should be playing. This comes down to a 7th or 8th grader, we'll say 8th grader who's 13 years old, needs to go through this APP process, get all these scores, have a physical, pass the presidential placement or presidential test, whereas a 9th grader who's 13-year-old can play whatever level the coach sees fit for them to play at. We need to have that across the board. As a coach, I would not recommend a player to play up if I didn't feel they were ready to play up. And I can say almost all the coaches I have spoken to feel the same way. We would not recommend a player to play at a level above what they can compete at. Basing it on other schools in the area as well, most of them have done away with this Tanner score requirement and made it a recommendation so that these kids who play a sport year-round for club, outside of school, they're playing at a much higher level, and they may not meet that Tanner score that would allow them to play where they compete at competitively in high school. So, doing the research, the state's requirement changed back in 2017. It was changed back in 2017, which is, and it doesn't seem like our policy has changed since then. It's updated. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Marvin Veter, proud parent of 2 student athletes here at Scotia-Glenville. And just to add on to what was just said, trying to find our APP process and what has been board approved is impossible. I can't find it. However, I teach at another area high school, and it's fairly easy to find. So if there is no process and you are looking to put a process into place that the board is going to vote on, I would suggest going with the New York State recommendations. The Tanner score was dropped as a requirement in 2017 because they found a few problems with the Tanner score, and they were being sued over it. A couple of the reasons is the maturity rates of boys and girls were not originally taken into the consideration of Dr. Tanner's original scores in the 60s. So they dropped those. They also found that race sometimes played a role in the sexual maturation of young men and women. Now, what I think is interesting here on the state website is they decided to make it a recommendation, but only a small aspect of the overall judgment on whether the student was physically ready to play the sport. And this is quoted from the website. The medical director is instructed to take into consideration height, weight, muscle mass, as well as the Tanner rating, not just the Tanner rating. Now, if you go through, present the policy, and it doesn't look like it's made change since 2017, I would strongly recommend a change. But just to give you a little bit of what we went through with this, it was very frustrating. We had the physical done, the Tanner rating was there, but our daughter was already playing with 16 and 17-year-olds in travel sports outside of school. She's big enough, fast enough, strong enough. And then when we get here, the coaches, the athletic director, everybody who knows her was ready for her to play up. It was the district doctor who looked at the Tanner score alone and then said no. So one of the things I would like, or I hope you guys can do, is clarify this APP process, but also take away the ultimate power of just the Tanner score as the rating for whether the student can play. Because in my experience here so far, Athletic Director Rockhill, the coaches have been absolutely fantastic, and I don't think any of my daughter's coaches would allow them to be harmed or physically hurt in any way at all. And I do trust them, and there's a vote for the coaches. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Angela Piazza. I live at 813 Charles Street in Glenville. And it's hard to follow Steve and Marv. They've eloquently said everything I've been thinking about for weeks. Now, I'm not, my oldest daughter is currently in 6th grade, but she's an older 6th grader. So I would like to think if she was in 7th grade currently, she's a top performing athlete. She's been playing club soccer for a long time, basketball. I would think she'd be in a similar position as the Veter's daughter, where her rate of sexual maturation is just not where it would be according to this Tanner scale rating. And I just think it's unfair, it's outdated to only use that as the district's decision to let high-performing athletes, not just skill, but her mental ability to play the game, her social emotional maturity, she also plays up within her club playing soccer. So I really would also encourage, the district to look at the policy and frame it in a different way and take into consideration other factors, height, weight, experience outside of school, club coach's recommendation, my own daughter, other children's PCP, their own primary care physician who's been following them since birth. I just think that there are a lot of amazing athletes who can do amazing things, and the modified level, great, but some kids are just kind of beyond that already, and I just think it's a disservice and not fair to them to be held back if they have more to contribute to the district and grow as individuals, and have a lot to offer the school district, especially when right now currently it seems like we're hurting for numbers. And I know last year with the modified girls soccer, half the team was not experienced in playing soccer. That's going to cause frustration for children who are kind of beyond that learning realm of the modified level. So I just kind of wanted to join in so you were hearing from more voices, in the community, because that's a pretty, I think, important thing to look at, especially, like I said, athletes, they're maturing differently. The research shows us that. If you look at studies, they're not maybe developing the way kids are who aren't exercising and working out and engaging in physical activity the way some of our children are. So thank you for your consideration of a change.
Hi everybody, Sarah Veter, 12 Social Lane. I have two beautiful daughters in the school district, Madeline Veter and Ruth Veter. Madeline is in 9th grade. She's an honor student. She has a really great GPA. I don't know where she gets it from. Probably me, not her father. And then I have another daughter that just got into 7th grade, and she is always trying to compete with her sister. My 9th grader is on the varsity soccer team. She played JV last year. She had a great time. The coaches were absolutely fantastic. That's one thing that we do have here is really great coaches. And so this year, my older daughter was really wanting to get on the varsity team. She got her varsity letter last year during the soccer dinner. She was really excited to try out for varsity. She went through, all of the right things that she did. And of course, her little sister is chomping at the bit, right? I got to be better than my older sister, and I have to do what she did. And it's always been this competition in our house, which is great sometimes, but then some other times not so great. So Ruth had it in her head pretty early on that she wanted to try out for JV. She's been playing club soccer for many, many years. She loves the game. If you ask her, she's going to be on the next USA soccer team. I try to tell her, tame those expectations, but I want to give her everything. I want to make sure that we're setting her up for success with no matter what she wants to do in life. And so she had it in her head that she was going to try out for JV. She started attending all of the captain practices that were done all summer long. She knew about the placement test, so she was making sure that she, had her mile down. I think she was at like a 6.5-minute mile. She made sure that she was getting her sit-ups, her push-ups, her sit and reach. She was practicing all summer long. And in the meantime, I was working with my provider, making sure that we had everything submitted to the athletic department. Didn't really know too much about the Tanner score because I didn't really have an issue with my older daughter. She, I guess she was fine in 8th grade. They didn't say anything about it. Submitted all the paperwork. I was in Aruba that day, and I got a message from the nurse, and the nurse said, Ruth is ready to go. She can take the placement test. We've approved her physical. She's ready to go. She can show up on Tuesday. So I told Ruth that. She's very excited. She's still doing push-ups on the beach in Aruba, making sure she has her counts down. Tuesday, probably she's nervous all night. She shows up Tuesday morning. I drop her off at the school. I, of course, wait outside with my binoculars because I'm a psycho parent trying to figure out where she's at. And then Rock Hill calls me and says, nope, she can't take it because the physician at the school reviewed the paperwork. She's a Tanner 3, which I guess is freshman, but not a Tanner 4, which is JV. And so she couldn't take the test, and it was absolutely devastating for her. So, in my experience with this, of course, she still wants to play, and so she continued to, I guess, be with the modified team. I will say, though, looking at the teams and where my daughter's at, my daughter is on the varsity team. She has 13 players. You need at least 17 to 18 players to have a good varsity team. In soccer, as you know, you need a lot of subs. And so the varsity team is struggling. They are struggling this year. They have 2 injuries, so now they're playing with 11 or 12. It's 11 to play. And so they're constantly trying to pull players up from JV, and they're helping where they can, but then that leaves the JV team. The JV team only has 13 players. The modified team has 18 players. And it's half of them they're coming up, right? They want to learn the sport, and which is great. And then the other half of them are bored to death because they are just, they're not even really being coached because the one coach has to spend all their time with the players that don't know anything, which is, again, modified. That's what you're here for. You're here to learn. And so, as everybody has said, I just ask you to not just look at the Tanner score as the only factor into allowing somebody to be on the team. Let these women try out. Let them try out. Let them talk to the coaches. Let the coaches have a voice in their say. I don't know what's going to happen next year, but I hope it's different, and I also hope it's different for all the kids that are in 6th grade right now that have been playing club soccer forever that also want to try out. So, thank you.
I'm not sure this can go as low as I am, but I'm Heather Rakes. I live at 322 Alexander Ave. I'm here to offer, kind of piggyback off of them, but also a different perspective. My daughter Claire is in 8th grade, and she did take the placement test, and she passed it, and she also had a Tanner scale where she was able to play up on JV. So you might think, well, that's great, then why are you complaining? A couple of things. Going through this process was extremely difficult in the sense that I had no idea what the process was. And in talking with a lot of other parents, and also just kind of talking to parents that are getting ready for basketball season, the only way I was able to even get information of what the process would be for Claire was basically going to other school districts' websites. For example, if I go to the Burnt Hills Ballston Lake website, it's very clear. Their whole process is laid out for you. You can read exactly what you need to do, exactly like what the kids will have to do for the tests, what's required. But also on their website, it even comes out and quotes the New York State Education Department's updated 2017 process. And right on that, it says that the Tanner scale is just a recommendation, but it is not a requirement. In fact, it says the Tanner scales on chart H in this document are no longer required numbers. So I'm kind of here in support of other athletes because I will tell you, as much as I'm super excited that Claire's playing up on JV, she's having a really, really hard time because we've had games where she couldn't even play in the game. It ended up where they didn't have enough players, so we had to borrow from the other team. And I think it would be a lot different if some of these modified players were able to come up and play with her. The other thing that I think is really interesting is I've done a lot of research trying to find, because we kept being told, well, it's a Board of Ed policy. So I did find the policy 5280 athletics, and there's nothing in there that says anything about the Tanner scale. And the only date that's on here is revised 1999. So I think if we're going to be using a policy, it probably should be current with the New York State Ed one that is in 2017. I also think with the Board of Ed policy that's here, it's very vague. It just says medical approval. And we're basing this on a school physician that doesn't even meet our kids. So they're basically looking at a piece of paper and signing it off. I've also done a little bit of research. I've been working in the Averill Park School District for 23 years. My husband's in the Schenectady School District for over 20 years. And, you know, we just have a pretty good pulse on what's happening in other districts. And everyone I talk to kind of has said what these guys are saying, that the Tanner scale is really a recommendation. Obviously, we don't want kids playing up if it's a safety concern, but it's not like a requirement. So again, I think if we're going to quote a Board of Ed policy or say that's how it's being done, then I think we need to see it in writing, because, you know, if that makes sense. So anyway, I'm just here to just kind of piggyback on them, support, because I think we have a lot of athletes that have potential and they're being held back on something that we have all agreed that just doesn't seem to be what's best for kids. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Erin Hoffman. I live at 8 Havenbrook Drive in Glenville. I also am here because I do currently have a 6th grader who will be in 7th grade next year. She is an avid soccer and basketball player, has been since she was 8 years old. I'm looking at it more. My husband is also currently going to be help coaching this year for the Tartan Travel basketball with Clay Savage, and we are looking at the numbers that we have. And as the turnout is great, we also have a lot of players who are signed up who have never played before, which is, again, an amazing thing to have gathered all of these students that are interested in playing. Our concern is all of those kids will be trying out for modified next year if they like it, and we are working with a very young group of kids. So I currently have a daughter who's playing at a different level, according to the Tanner score, would not be able to participate in the JV level basketball. It's a frustrating process for students who work very hard at their craft. I also think it's something that school sports in general are struggling because of travel sports. And if you're not feeling that you have the ability to work with coaches that can help you, that can train you, because of certain circumstances where they're working with players that need more development and you're kind of lost in the shuffle. I've seen many that have left school sports in order to move strictly to travel sports. And it's, my son this year was asked originally to play JV, to try out for JV baseball. He did not meet the Tanner score. We did not address it further because he felt he wanted to stay unmodified, that he was going to get the most playing opportunity. So as his parents, it was what he wanted to do. We did not push it any further. I think if it wasn't going to be a good fit for him unmodified, or if he felt frustrated with that process, we then would have pulled you know, some more information and tried to get him to be able to test. So I think it needs to, besides being a board decision, athletic, it needs to be a parent-child decision as well. He chose not to move forward with that, but maybe my daughter will, and I would like her to have the opportunity to test. And if she's recommended by, you know, coaches, then I think that needs to be taken in consideration. Also, I'm uncomfortable with a school physician who doesn't know my child making a decision for them versus their, personal physician that's been with them since birth, possibly. Thank you.
There's no one else that would like to address the board at this time. We'll close this hearing privilege of the floor. Remind everybody at the end of the meeting will be another hearing privilege of the floor. At this time, we will turn this portion of the meeting over to our friends at Learning Leaps for a presentation.
Just a little bit. Is that good? That's okay. I'll wait till it comes up. It's my pleasure to be here again presenting on the Learning Leaps program. Last summer, I was able to be the administrative intern for the program, and I had the absolute pleasure of being the principal of both the extended school year program and the Learning Leaps program this summer.
I'm Chelsea Murphy. I took over the administrative intern role this year and had a pleasure. I usually work at the high school, so working with our youngest students was an absolute joy.
So our Learning Leaps mission statement, the purpose of our summer program is to provide each student with an opportunity to review and enhance skills that they've learned during the last school year. This year, each classroom developed lesson plans and activities around Scotia-Glenville's prioritized standards in the English language arts. We also had a group of math students that were there for tiered math instruction, and we were able to, we'd like to refine that in the future, but we did have some students in the math area. And our theme of this year's program was explorations in space.
So the Learning Leaps purpose, it is a 4-week program and runs 3 hours a day, Monday through Thursday. The students come from all over the district, and the Learning Leaps program is based on ELA priority standards, as Rachel just mentioned. The goal is to help students maintain or improve their Spring, Fountas, and Pinnell scores.
So we just included a chart about F&P or Fountain and Pinnell scores. So you can see the range that students should be in at sort of at the beginning, middle, and end of their grade level. So we usually see students that are probably towards the beginning of what their year would be. So if we have kindergarten students, when we're looking at that to come into our program, they could be at an A. Our goal is to help them maintain that score or to help them increase that score. So when they get back in the fall and they're doing their F&P testing, we can see a difference, or we at least have not seen any learning loss.
And so teachers, an important part is assessment, and teachers provide a weekly newsletter based on the work that they have completed in their classrooms. It's a great way for teachers to summarize learning for families and for students.
So this is just a snapshot of our Learning Leaps 2023, and I'm sorry, it should say 2024. So in summer 2023, we had 68 students and 15 staff. We had 2 sections of first grade, so the funding allowed for that. But the class caps were smaller than we made them this year, so they were probably sitting around 10 to 12 based on the class. So even though the first grade, it says 2 sections, there were 2 sections fairly evenly split. This summer, we had 57 students. We did have a little bit of a higher enrollment, but due to, some vacations that were coming up, were students that decided after the fact of enrolling in the program, we're not gonna be able to attend the 4 weeks, which we do ask parents, because it's such a short period of time to do. So you see a little bit of decrease in that enrollment, but it was pretty close at the beginning when we were looking at the enrollment numbers. And because we went down a section, we had a little less staffing. So you can see our enrollment by grade level. So we upped those margins in the grade level to about 15 students. And our 4th grade section was one of those sections where actually more students signed up. There was probably about 17 or 18 that signed up. And then sort of through the attrition from April until we started, they ended up around 14, but they were our largest cohort. And if you look sort of at the enrollment from 2023, you can see that third grade block would go up to fourth grade. So you can see they've been pretty large that whole time, that particular section.
And so a follow-up from last year's Learning Leaps report, available fall data was collected and compared to spring 2023 F&P levels. The sample size was 58 students. Current sixth grade students were not included in the data comparison as they did not conduct F&P testing at the middle school. We use a program called iReady at the middle school building. It was found that 74% of students surveyed maintained or increased their spring F&P level during the fall F&P testing. 26% of students surveyed tested below their spring F&P testing during the fall testing, and attendance data was also included in the collection. So our updated data for Learning Leaps 2024 will be available after October 4th, and we look forward to sharing that data with you at that time.
So if we look at moving forward, just like Chelsea just said, our data will be collected through the F&P testing. They're also doing Ames Web Plus testing and a whole host of things that they do in the fall. So we'll be kind of combing through that and also looking where tiered they are in their math tiers as well, since we had an abundance of math students. And this was our last Learning Leaps year, or our last summer that was sponsored by grant funds. So moving forward, it would need to be funded by the district.
One of the greatest parts of the summer was the end of year program coordinated by Rachel. And it was in combination with the extended school year program. There was a great story on the school website, and you could follow this link if you'd like to take a look at that. It was a fun event for the entire community.
We definitely do not do these things alone. So this was our wonderful staff. We had a teacher and a TA per grade level. We also had a secretary. We had a couple of nurses that worked on and off with us because it's the summer. It was a pleasure to work with Chelsea this year and have her here with us.
And likewise. A big thank you to Lincoln Elementary for hosting the program, our wonderful transportation department for safely transporting our students, the Rotary and Glen Warden PTA for providing us with snacks, Sharon Riggy and Rick Arquette at district office for organizing and supporting our Learning Leaps program, and our Scotia-Glenville families for continuing to attend our Learning Leaps program.
Thank you. And if you have any questions, we would be happy to take them. Thank you.
You said that 58 students attended. How many were invited?
Usually, and it's been around the same amount every year, it's usually around 230 or 40 students. If we were to do this again next summer, I'd like to refine that process a little bit to target the students first that might need the bulk of the help. What we gather our data from is a large program. I'd like to also combine more recommendations with that. So we are with providers that are giving us direct information on the students themselves, so we can correctly match that up. It's hard to just see those numbers or the scores. You really want to know more about the student and what they've been working towards, because they could be pretty close even without the summer help to move forward, and there could be a student that might need that help a little bit more.
Did you, from the 2023 to the 2024, was it relatively the same students or different students?
We tend to like to not have to see the same students again, even though we absolutely love them. Our goal is to get them pushed past that level so they don't have to see us again, even though we'd love to see them again. So I would say that there are some familiar students there, and you have to look too at what their summer experience might have been like. So it depends on the attendance of the student, but if they maintain that grade level, we may see them again next year. If they were leaps and bounds, I had a student come up to me this year and say, I can't go to Learning Leaps anymore because I did too well. And then that's what I want to hear. That's exactly what I want to hear.
How much was the grant for it? It was part of our federal funds during COVID. Do we know how much we actually spent of the grant for this program? All of it was what? What was the amount? Because I don't remember. But we did use all of it. We will figure it out, Kim, and get that to you in Friday's update. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on, we will go to Superintendent Schwartz's comments.
I'm going to talk both about your Board of Ed goals potentially, including curriculum and instructional topics. I do just want to say this afternoon at the Dutch Reformed Church, Liz Bishop they were having a telethon for folks to contribute to our backpack program. So I was there, numerous other people, and they're having a telethon, I believe, still as we speak, looking for donations, but it was certainly a very positive experience. And then I would also share with the board that I met with Superintendents Mummonty from Niskayuna and McGrath from Boston Spa Burnt Hills last week to talk about a combined preschool, UPK, coming up. So I will have more information about that as our discussions move forward. Thank you. And I'll turn it back to you for the Board of Ed goals.
All right, so everyone received in their packets this week a summarize of 2 weeks ago of the board goals, and then some items that potentially we could work on, Susan and the team could work on. So obviously the first goal that we continue and that we need to work on, our policy committee, just make sure our policies are up to date and reviewed. As we heard tonight, we need to review some more. So we need to keep working on that one. And then the two other ones that are on there, so if anybody would like to comment, what is here, what is not here, what we feel our goals should be, are there any here that we would like to talk about from 2 weeks ago? Or are we in agreement with what is here?
I know I read this document. Is it in, you said it?
It's in our packet from this week.
It is from this week? I know I just read it.
In the board packet, 9/23.
Okay. All right. The first one about the policies, I thought, weren't we already kind of doing that? Was that a carryover from last year? Mm-hmm. Were we not already doing that? I didn't.
We are, but we still have to make sure that's what we're all in agreement on wanting to continue to do.
Okay. I guess I assumed that was sort of a given, and that because we had so many other ideas that I didn't see on the list there. Oh, I got it. It's right here. Not that we wouldn't do that. I was unclear because there were the three at the top of the document, and then it sounded like the ones at the bottom. I'm not really sure are the ones at the bottom going to be, why are they separated into two categories?
Because the ones at the top are the ones I brought for your consideration, recognizing that the board will work on far more things than just these three goals, that these are a focus, but not the only things. These other three came up as part of our discussion, but these other three are already things that I'm working on with my people.
Okay.
So again, those things will happen whether they were adopted as board goals or not.
I just felt like when I reviewed these that there was a lot more going out, like Kim, you had talked about mental health being addressed, and Hal had an idea of seeing what programs may not be getting as much use as they had in the past, and potentially figuring out a way to either do it a different way or reduce it to try to help with their budget. And there was other things. Carnegie, you had some ideas, and maybe I'm not reading this, but I felt like there was some things missed. And then with respect to the EV bus transition, I'm not exactly sure what a community forum is necessarily going to do to help. It's unfortunately a mandate we're stuck dealing with. I myself have not heard that people thought that was a necessity. So those are my thoughts. I mean, obviously, you already know my thoughts about the weighted grading. I do appreciate that you're willing to take that on. I guess I'm not exactly sure what a study would need to be had for that. And I did appreciate that you put it in our presentation program, but it's not until April, which is 7 or 8 months away. So I'm throwing a bunch of things out at once. It's just my thoughts as I was reading this.
So here's what I would suggest. If the board feels there are things missing that we discussed that either should be up in those top 3 or you'd like to make foci, please send those to me again, because there was a lot of discussion, quite honestly, not a lot of goals, but lots of chat. So if you could help me shape, I'll use Kinney's mental health. We had a presentation on our mental health services last year that was quite thorough from the PPS department. If there's something else you want to do or know, more specificity will help in shaping that. So that would be one suggestion, is that people go back, take a look at these, send me new information. Kim, I'm going to bring you a charge for the weighted grade committee, because I will pull a committee together to look at the data and the research on weighted grading. And as I had mentioned originally, now that the State Education Department is looking at multiple pathways to graduation, we want to be mindful of that. Even if we create a weighted grading policy, we may not be talking about simply, I took AP, but you didn't. It could get into, I had an internship at Bellagio Cheese and did this. And I think we have to have a discussion about how does that child's grade get weighted. Because traditional weighted grading in the sense of academics only is clearly not the direction the State Education Department wants us to be moving in. So that's why I will form a committee and we will bring you recommendations.
All right, I will say to that I understand your position that things may change, but in the interim, we've had multiple districts still proceeding as they had for years.
And that may be a first step for us, is that we move to a weighted grading academics only to start. But if we're going to start talking about how we evaluate students and grade them in a more comprehensive way, it's pretty clear to me this is the way the state's moving. They're talking about regionalization, they're talking about recognizing other things that students do. So I'm not saying we won't weight grades in September, but I'm saying that there has to be a process that addresses each of these pieces.
And I completely understand that. Again, I just think that I think a wait and see process, depending on what the state's going to do, just puts our kids behind when they're sitting literally next door to other districts who have the exact policy that we're missing.
And that's what we will look at. So we could be here in April and saying, here's the weighted grade policy that will go into effect in September. And meantime, we will go back and continue to work on these other pieces.
All right, is there a reason we have to wait until, believe me, I get that there's other things going on, but it was surprising me that we're waiting 7 to 8 months to.
Not everyone agrees we should go to weighted grading.
Oh, and I agree. I understand what you're saying with that. I get that, and that's the reason I understand that you want to do the study, and that's fine.
But we will study and make recommendations. It's not that we're just going to sit and think about it. You've made your feelings about this very clear. I don't know if that's how the whole board feels, and ultimately it will be the board that adopts a policy.
I agree.
Would it be possible or even desirable or legal for the board to compile all of these in one place and then send them to you? I find it very difficult with all the emails back and forth. And then, like you said last week, there was a lot of discussion. Would we be able to have a shared document just among us where we could keep track of the goals in there and just so they're all kind of in the same format and we can see what each other are writing and saying instead of having to just go through this email chain? Can we do like a shared Google document?
We could
Is
set
that
up a
allowed?
shared document. It could start with this document.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I think that might, for me, that would be easier if it just all lived in one place.
If we get together separately, can we do that? Can we get together as a board ourselves and
Well,
kind
not
of?
as a board yourself unless you're having an announced meeting.
Yep, I've had
4
that.
people or more, you have to have an announced meeting.
Okay.
But certainly you can talk to your colleagues.
Do you want me to open the document or would somebody else be doing that?
Jill will be happy to put it together.
Okay, all right,
Send
thank
it
you.
out to folks.
Thank you, Jill.
And we can get together, just the board alone, it's just considered an executive session and we have to announce it, correct?
No, if more than 4 of you are together, it's a board meeting. 4 or more is a board meeting and takes an announcement. That's why sometimes when you're in the parking lot chatting and there are 4 of you, you hear from me saying, don't do that. That's considered a board taking action.
I wasn't thinking we would need to meet. I was just thinking if I could see it in real time on paper.
Well, I suggested that just to be more helpful, so.
What's that?
I suggested that just to be more helpful, more
Right.
easier. Run back and forth on a computer.
It's part of the reason that committees can be helpful and work, because you may, like, Kimmy and I are the policy committee. We can talk about all these policies as much as we want, because there's only 2 of us. And then we have to bring them to you for any action. But if you have a committee that only has a couple of people together, if it's their interest, they could get together and talk about it and then make suggestions in writing to the rest of us. Yes. Because different people are interested in different things. So if you get, 2 or 3 board members that really want to work on something, that's great.
Just don't add a 4th.
So what I hear us saying is we're gonna make a shared document, we'll put this in there, and then folks can go in and start working.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I think that'd be helpful.
Well, is anybody in agreement on, so we don't have to keep going round and round on numbers 2 and 3 that were on here? Or we just want to do the doc and go from there? Because Susan summarized 3 goals for us that we all had expressed interest in last week. So obviously the policy committee is still going to be one of our goals, but then for the other ones, I'm all for forums. That's what part of mine was with community communication, which we need to work on. But I'm not sure we need to talk about EV buses. I think forums is something we need to do more regularly than we do by surveying the community and what's hot buttons and what we can talk about.
I think if you just took that last line out, just the relative to the ongoing EV bus transition. So
I'm sorry?
if you just took the pertaining just to the EV bus transition, the forums, if you just took that out, then that would open it up for more opportunities as things come up as we go.
So maybe not make it a board goal, make it a part of it where you have to talk about it at some point.
Right, so
Right.
it could just be, like if something else comes up from New York State and we want to have a forum to let our community know, then it wouldn't just be we only have EV bus. We can open it up to, so just take that out and just put a forum for public gathering community feedback.
I think that'd be ideal because that was one of mine, and I kind of fashioned it from a goal a couple of years ago where it was to get out and have forums. And I don't believe, and if I'm wrong, let me know, I don't think that was achieved. So just edit it down, and then we're right in line with the goal.
No, the only forums that we had were for budget or capital projects.
No, I think it was from, I think, 2 years ago that it was
Right.
visible. Yeah.
All right, so Jill will get the document for us, share it with us, and then we can communicate that way. And then 2 weeks from now, we can have this back on to button this up. Okay. Thank you. All right, then next, we'll move on to the curriculum and instructional topics for the year. Again, that's in your packets.
And I'm not asking you to do anything other than take a look at this, and if there is something else that's of interest to you, let me know, and if we don't present on it, we can certainly provide information about it. So this doesn't require action.
Thank you, Susan, for putting all of this
Yes,
together.
thank you.
Thank you for putting all of this together based on all of our discussions from last meeting.
All good.
And putting up with us.
All right, moving on, agenda item number 7, the discussion for the resolutions for the NISBA business meeting. And again, also in our packets. So what we'll do, folks, is we'll talk about the ones that obviously do not have a majority on and that are close either way. I know that there's a couple that were asked for discussions. However, the ones that were discussions, the majority was 6. So the first one that would be up for discussion would be topic item number 6, where there was 4 of us. Flip back to the other one. Sorry about that, everybody. So those folks that voted no on that one, would anybody like to talk about that one? Since we have 4 in a majority, and there was one undecided though.
You're asking for on number 6. So this was one of the ones, to go back to, again, this is why I hate having discussions over email. This is one of the ones that was confusing for me because in the front part of the packet, it says that these are all the ones they're recommending. But if you look at number 6, it actually says no position. So I don't know if they're recommending it or they're not recommending it.
So the no position on the bottom of that, Emily, is NISBA for the last couple of years have put in a DEI committee review. So that's not NISBA, that's DEI committee. They've looked at these and they said that they are in favor or support, no position, or oppose, I believe is the other term.
Right, but are we voting for that on the actual writing inside the rationale, or are we voting whether or not we agree with the position? Because there is no position.
Again, the position is from DEI, that's not from NISBA. That's why it says DEI committee review. So DEI committee, they reviewed it. They don't have a position whether they're going to support or oppose it. They just are neutral on that one. So what we're doing is we're voting yes or no that we agree with NISBA to move forward with this resolution.
Okay.
So NISBA is saying they would believe that BOCE's district superintendent compensation should be increased. So would you agree with the New York State School Boards that that should happen?
I might have been the you. I honestly am not remembering, but if I it was because I wanted to ask you, Drew. If we do this, do you see it having any real adverse effect on our budget? Because we obviously would have to put money towards that, correct?
It will have an adverse effect, though.
I know. How bad? I mean, I want your opinion. You're our business person, so that when I had the only ones I put the you on was one where I was like, I really want Drew's thought on it.
Hard to quantify it at this point, but given the state of aid or lack thereof, it's hard to take another unfunded mandate. We're trying to maintain what we have, so I have to dig into it more.
Yeah, I was kind of, as I remember, I was kind of surprised that NISBA was thinking about increasing because I understand about the need to do so to get good talent, but then the alternative of that is, okay, if we let it increase, we then have to pay more money towards BOCES. And I know NISBA talks a lot about unfunded. I mean, you're right, that's the perfect way of putting this. This is kind of like that. We don't know where it's gonna end up. What is that, if there's no limit, how bad is it gonna be, and how are we gonna end up getting affected as to what our input into that amount is? So that was where I was like, going back and forth and wanted to bug you about it.
One problem that a lot of BOCES are having is with the amount of money they can pay their superintendents. They're very limited. And therefore, there are a lot of people who are not taking those jobs, who are very qualified for those jobs, but who can make more by being a district superintendent than by being a BOCES superintendent. So I think part of this is trying to level it out so that your BOCES people can get paid as much as some of your district superintendents.
So then I could see raising the cap maybe, right? But to just get rid of it completely, that's
why I voted no.
yeah, that's a different piece, right?
People that sponsored this whole thing are upper class communities.
Right.
We're gonna hurt. No, it's gonna hurt. Smaller schools are all gonna hurt from this. So that's why I'm no.
This is one, Kimberly, that might come up during the discussion of the possibility of just raising the cap. And you might look toward the discussion of that, you know, you might be in favor of raising the cap as opposed to just eliminating the cap altogether.
Well, then my question becomes though, because as of right now, the majority says fine. So am I following the majority, or has this discussion created a change? And if not, that's fine. I'll do what the majority wants to do when I cast our vote.
Well, after discussion, has anybody felt like they would like to change their vote on that one?
And you don't have to say either way, so there's no.
I would be in favor if it was to raise the cap, to say yes, if they're gonna go that way, you know, because they'll change right there on the floor when you're listening. If they're gonna raise the cap to stay there, but maybe say no to having the sky the limit, if it's gonna affect us as a budget and the smaller school districts, because it's not really fair to all concerned when it comes to the whole of New York State, like Singh is saying.
It sounds like a downstate where they're having trouble attracting the talent compared to upstate.
So I'd be in favor to support
Yeah, and
a cap.
considering who it's submitted by, we're talking Orange County,
Downstate,
NASA.
yep.
Yeah, so that would make sense. It's downstate, definitely.
So I would support a cap, but maybe change it to no for sky's the limit.
All right. Anybody? Okay, so I believe I was the you on this, so I would be okay with the cap, but we're still at 4 Ys. So if we're at 4 Ys, then I have to accept it as sky's the limit and vote that way. So if anybody is willing to change their vote, I think Hal, you got the right question. If anybody's wants to change their vote, not willing, sorry, wants to change their vote, speak now or forever hold your peace, or I'm going to have to vote for it because that's what the majority said was yes.
I'll change mine. I would much rather see the cap raised than eliminated altogether.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Can you hit my budget?
The next one would be number 13, I believe. Sorry, my computer just froze.
I think a lot of this stuff in education is moving toward nobody gets favored over anybody else. And what this is saying is they want to give favoritism to the economically disadvantaged or the English language learners. Well, I know when my son was in school, if this had been available for him, he would not have gone, because although I wasn't on food stamps or that type of stuff, I didn't have the money to be able to send him, so he would be denied the possibility of being part of this. So I don't think it should be, anybody should be given preferential treatment.
if it would help people and clarify, currently, students are selected by lottery. So if you are an economically disabled or disadvantaged student, or you are a student who comes from a middle class or a more wealthy family, you have the same option, if that's helpful. What many superintendents, myself included, believe is UPK should be targeted first and foremost to students who are economically disadvantaged. Early learning for that particular population. When you look at class size research, there are some pretty stable statistics that would indicate that rather than lottery where everybody's treated equally, if you start with your kids who need it the most. And here's why this makes sense at some level. Burn Hills Boston Lake has 179 slots for pre-K. They don't have room to host one, so they have one program that's hosted by the Glenville Y. So 19 of those 179 kids are actually getting UPK. In my mind, if only 19 kids can get UPK, I'd want them to be my 19 neediest kids if I can only have one classroom. Niskayuna has 235 slots. They have one program hosted by the JCC, which has 14 kids in it. Again, if I have 235 kids who are eligible for preschool and I can only get 14 into a classroom because that's the only classroom that exists for my school district, I would want my neediest kids there. So it really is more about the lottery. The lottery at present treats everyone the same way, and you might feel that is the best thing. But if you look back at what universal pre-K was supposed to do, it was supposed to create service for our neediest students initially. So I would tell you as your superintendent, and certainly if you want to vote no, I will support you. I would tell you as your superintendent that I would hope we would get our most needy students into whatever programming we could as early as we could. And do away with the lottery. Go at it from economic need to start. Because right now, everybody's treated equally, and as we all know, treating people equally doesn't necessarily mean everybody gets what they need.
Right, I just feel like we're cutting out that gap section. So my feeling is we need to heighten the qualification level, because you have those people who are just making pennies over who are not going to be able to get the education. And yes, they are lower income families, but they're literally pennies over, so they don't qualify for our neediest families. So for me, I get where you're coming from, but at the same time, we live in an Alice community here in Scotia-Glenville, and we are cutting out half of our children if we only go with the neediest. So that's where I fall on this, and I know I surprise everybody when I say no to this, because I feel like unless they bring the qualifications higher, it still doesn't fit the needs that we need in our community.
That was my concern, was where's that line? It says economically disadvantaged, but it doesn't define in the summary explaining it, what is that? Because Pam, thank you for using yourself as an example that to me, that is economically disadvantaged. I just don't know where it fits in the scale on here. So that was my concern. I would have liked to see more detail from NISBA as to what their thought process was.
That was if the cap was high enough, then that would be a different story for me, but I feel like we're losing those families.
Yeah, I think as it's written, it's too vague.
It is too vague as it's written. I don't understand where the line is. Is it just SNAP? Are they just using, certain numbers? Because I can tell you when I see the numbers that a household should make, people aren't making that but then they're not affording to be able to go to preschool, and that's why we are losing preschools in our community.
Wasn't there something similar last year to this one? And
Same
we had
one.
A similar discussion?
I think it was the same discussion.
Similar, I think it's worded differently this year. So did anybody that vote no change their mind? We're listening to Susan and Kim and Kim. I guess
In
not.
my opinion, the question should be, is there anybody who voted yes who would like to change their mind to no?
Well, I think no's had the majority, didn't it? I think there's only 3 yeses on that one. All right, we'll move on next to item 15, or I should say resolution 15. That one had 4 yeses. That is to advocate for the New York Swims Initiative.
I had a problem with this one because it sounds like the resolution is because they want to increase funding, but then the rationale goes on to say, on the second page, school districts are well positioned to provide comprehensive K-12 swimming programs. I don't know that that's true. I mean, some of them might be and some of them aren't. But would that mean, if this were to pass, would that mean that all the schools that, because it talks about how they could use the money to build pools and for schools that don't have them, and that just sounds like, I just feel like this is way ahead of, I just don't think that we're ready for this. It sounds like a really big, sounds like the bus mandate, you know, they're just that. Obviously, we want to teach all the students to swim, but it just sounds like a really, really, really big task to fill. And again, I don't know if they're asking just for the money to do it, or I just, this whole thing was just too vague, and I just wasn't confident in it.
Anyone else like to discuss? This is 4 yeses and 3 no's. None. Let's move on to 16, which is wide open. 16 had 2 yeses, 2 no's, and 3 undecideds.
One thing I thought was interesting with this is that I don't like how they say the DEI committee review opposes it, but they don't tell us why they're opposing it.
Yeah, I don't understand.
Why are they opposing it? I find that to be important information, and I don't get why they're not sharing that information.
So my question is going to be for Drew on this one. How does the opt-out affect our transportation?
Opt-out what? Let's clarify that.
It says to provide an opt-out to transportation services, so parents can just opt their children out. Like, that's the whole resolution here.
We have parents that opt out now.
I know, so does it really make a difference to us?
I think it'd be great when they need less buses and bus drivers if they drove their kids.
Yeah, because it just goes on to say to streamline so you kind of knew how many buses you needed, and I was like, why would this be a negative thing? But I didn't know, does that hurt us or?
No, people opt out now. We have a lot of people that drive their kids to school, as you know.
I drive my children to school.
Yeah, that was why I ultimately voted yes on it, even though I didn't understand what the said no, that maybe I was missing something, and I was.
Well, that was mine. I was
confused. But it seemed to me that it almost seemed like a good thing to me to be able, if we can lower our transportation costs, because we have enough parents that are willing to put in writing that they don't need it. I think seems to me that's a good idea, right?
Yeah, I think so. So there's 3 undecideds on this one. Like I said, 2 yes and 2 no's. So the undecideds, or the no's or the yeses, but if we would like to switch, because right now it's,
Or explain why they're undecided, so maybe we can talk about it.
does everybody remember how they voted?
I wrote it down.
I voted yes.
Remember this?
So I'm a yes.
There's something tracking wrong. If 3 of us said yes, because there's only 2 on the sheet.
So count that as 3. So we're 3, 2, 2.
Right, so if there's 3 yeses, then there would be 2 no's and then 2 undecideds.
So 3, 2, 2. It has to be somebody else to switch over.
Yes.
So I put no.
Are you
Why?
saying no?
Okay, so maybe I'm a little tired when I read this, so. Saying yes is providing the option to opt out of bus services during the school year, me saying no, like, no, I don't want that, I want to, so I'll change mine to yes then.
Alright.
Thank you. Anyone else like to comment? If not, that's 4. Move on. The next one, I believe, is number 22. Where that one again had 2 yeses, 2 nos, and 3 undecideds. That one, I believe, is the one with the phrase. Is that the one? Significant adverse effects. That NISBA opposes proposed amendments to different sections. The Commissioner of Education's regulations related to mixed competitions and extracurricular athletic activities. So we said the same thing as we did last time. Those that were undecided. Oh man. Sorry. Undecided. Would like to talk about this?
I was undecided mostly because I wasn't fully sure that I understood it, and I was hoping that there would be other discussion, and maybe through someone else's comments I would get some clarity. It was just, I read it over and over and over again, and it just...
Well, it is worded odd.
The way I read this is that they're opposed to taking out the word significant adverse effect. And if a girl is going to play on a boys' team, I think you got to take into account any kind of adverse effects that could happen. So I'm opposed to taking out the words.
Right, so we either agree with that, we oppose it, or we disagree with it, right? I'm in the same.
So is the proposal to, I feel like this is like a negative of a negative. So is this resolution saying we should leave the phrase in, or is it saying we should take the phrase out?
Saying we should leave it in.
Say the resolution is we should keep the phrase in.
Yeah.
And my concern again here is the DEI committee is opposing it, but we have no idea why.
They're all for equality and everything. And sometimes you've got to consider whether equality is what is totally best.
And I guess I also wondered why it said it could impact female athletes. Why would it not impact all the athletes?
If you got boys and girls playing together,
right?
It's just the reality of life that boys are stronger. And if they're playing with girls or against girls, it could more likely cause an injury or have an adverse effect.
But it lists the sports, like it lists volleyball. I mean, we have separate male and boys and girls volleyball teams, right?
But if you pass this, you wouldn't have to.
I'm going to stick to my undecided.
Well, since we have 2 no's and 3 undecideds, that would lean towards a no vote on this one then.
Agreed.
All right, next is number 24, where we have 3 yeses and 4 no's.
I'm sorry, what number did you say?
24 was next.
Thanks.
This is where they would advocate for the minimization of field testing and school districts' decision-making rights to refuse participant in field testing without penalty. So again, does anybody on either side like to, because this was one to talk about, or no?
I think all schools should take part in field testing. And that's why I said no. I don't think they should allow schools, if they don't want to do it, not to do it. I think it's important that you get everybody involved in the field testing and getting opinions, because there's so many questions that are so based and biased depending on what part of the state you might be living in, that I think it's important that you get field tests from the whole state. And that way you have to do it less frequently too, if everybody is taking part. It's not going to all fall on just a few schools that are willing to do it.
I guess I was wondering, what's the alternative if we don't do field testing? Just throwing it on our students without any testing? I guess that concerned me. So I didn't know if there's no thought of an alternative in this, but I mean, Susan or Rick, if you've got any thoughts on that?
There are already embedded questions in the regular exams that are field test questions. So they are getting feedback on questions just in the regular exams themselves. This is an addition to those questions.
All right, that one would be a no then. All right, then we move on after that, I believe, then we go to the bottom of the section, starting with number 26, I believe. And these are resolutions that NISBA is not recommending. So we start right off with number 26, with 3 yeses, 3 nos, and 1 undecided. So I guess I would say the undecided. If you'd like to ask some questions or
I don't
anyone in
remember if I'm
relation to this.
undecided or not. And I think this came up last year too, and the concern I had was, would this eliminate the regents just from existence entirely, or would it still be an option? Are we just gonna have either just one or the other, or would you have the local exams and then you could also offer the regents exam for the students who wanted to take it? Wasn't this the one last year that you were around the table and it came down to 1 vote, Ms. Furnish?
It might have been, yeah. I think there was another piece to it though. It wasn't just about regions that had an and something or other that we were all concerned with, but I don't remember what was after that.
And this is supposed to be, I believe, sort of a midway look at this, in that when we talk about alternate pathways to graduation, that we wouldn't do away with all standardized exams or regents exams, but we would reduce the number of regents exams as we look at other ways that kids can demonstrate proficiency towards graduation.
All right, so would anybody like to change their vote, or Emily, would you like to go either way on this one? If you were the undecided?
It's just multiple pathways to a school diploma that could include regents exams. We voted against a blanket elimination of such exams. I'm still not clear if they want to eliminate regents exams entirely. A blanket elimination, I don't understand that sentence.
Blanket elimination would be all of them go. Every regent's exam.
So if I'm hear it, Susan saying, this one is saying that there'll still be regions of those who want to take it, but if we're looking at different pathways, this allows us to look at different pathways for graduation without having to take the regents.
They voted against.
So they correct?
Okay, I get it. Okay.
I think if I remember, I'm wondering if the board, if NISBA decided not to do it this year, because it was a very, very close vote last year statewide, and I think it lost to get rid of regents completely. And I think maybe that's why they're like, yeah, hands off, their state ed is working on it. I don't know, I think I voted no, against, I think it should still be a fight against regents, because that was what our district had decided. We had voted to try to have legislation to remove regents. But I feel like it was close. It was like 2 or 3 vote difference between pushing for legislation, getting rid of regents or not. And so, like I said, I'm wondering if NISBA wants hands off, and that's why they said, yeah, we're not pushing for that this year.
Probably.
And to be clear, since they're not recommending this one, if we say yes, we are agreeing with them not to recommend it?
Correct.
Anyone else? Okay, I can change to a yes.
All right, same thing on number 27. We have 3, 3, and 1. That-
Well, wait a minute. So we're 26. What are you changing from?
Emily went from undecided to yes.
I believe I was the.
So now we're tied. So that automatically makes it a no?
No,
Or is that
now we
automatically
have
making
four.
it?
You got 4
Now we
yeses.
have 4 that are saying, yes, we agree with NISBA.
Right.
Okay, all right.
Correct.
Thanks.
All right, moving on now to 27. We currently have 3 noes, 3 yeses, and 1 undecided. That is NISBA shall advocate for a cap on BOCE's budget increases.
Again, I think I'm the undecided. I would love to hear statements from both sides.
Well, in the earlier section, NISBA is supporting taking the cap off BOCES salaries. So this school district put forth a resolution for consideration that said NISBA should advocate for capping salaries. And NISBA's clearly not going to support that idea because they've already supported taking the cap off salaries in an earlier resolution.
Okay, so. So if I agree we should oppose it, that's a yes?
Correct.
Okay, then I'll change mine to a yes.
To a yes, all right. So that's 4 yeses.
Why do I have to be the
3 noes.
undecided one? Is it one of these?
Moving on to number 31. Same thing. 3 yeses, 3 noes, and 1 undecided.
31?
Number 31, yes, sir.
The last one.
Sorry.
It's the last one.
Oh, and again, that's me, the undecided. Same thing as last year, when they talk about comprehensive K through 12, I think we had this discussion last year that is kindergarten the appropriate place to start all of these things, or would it be flexible? And who would decide that?
Yeah, it's not detailed enough.
It's not detailed enough, and it's. So like comprehensive K through 12, and it says any school district. So would the school district have say in exactly what that comprehensive program would be, or is the state going to? Because they used to have the word mandating in capital letters. Are they going to mandate that we do this K through 12 and then we have to do it? So that's why I just don't feel like I have enough information. It's not clear enough.
Yeah, the mandating, you have to do what they say.
What's that?
It's the mandating.
Curriculum mandate.
What's that?
It's a curriculum mandate, so it would have to be whatever they go.
That's why they're opposing it.
Right. That's why they're
They
opposing.
don't want to mandate curriculum.
Right.
And the school boards is opposed to that. It should be a local decision.
Okay, so, again, I'm so upside down on these. So if I'm agreeing with opposing it, that's a yes? Okay, then you can change mine to a yes.
Again, that's 4 yeses, 3 noes. All right, moving on. We had 2 undecideds on number 33, but we did have 4 yeses. I can flip back. So you lose my page. You want to discuss that one at all? Yeah, discussion. So if there's no discussion on that one from the undecideds, we have 4 yeses on that one.
So it's a yes.
Okay. So again, that's that. And then number 37 was the last one. Again, that was an item to discuss. We have 4 yeses on that, 2 noes, and 1 undecided. If anybody would like to chat about that one. All right, if not, then that's 4 yeses. Kim? All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Kim, for doing that.
It's less questions this year, though. I was so excited to see. It's like 20, last year was like 50 something. So maybe it'll only be 6 hours instead of 9 hours.
We're
I'd
all
like
ordering
to,
dinner for Kim.
make a motion that we allow Kimberly, now that she understands where our positions are, to change our vote dependent on how changes are made from the floor or how changes are made to the, she hears something that she's convinced that if we had thought of, we would have.
Yeah.
All right, a second for that.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion on that? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Or abstain? All right, thank you. All right, moving on to item number 8. If I get a motion to accept the ESSA analysis for 22-23 versus 21-22.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the ESSA analysis 22-23 versus 21-22.
Thank you, and second.
I'll second.
Thank you. Do you have any questions or comments on that? No? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain? So moved. If I get a motion, please, to adopt Board of Education policies, item 9, 10, 11, and 12, please.
I'll make a motion that we adopt Board of Education policies 4327,
Bless you.
5510.1, 5520, and 5530 as submitted.
Thank you. Second.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Do we have any comments or questions on that? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain? So moved. If I get a motion, please, for item number 13.
I move that we amend the appointment of district-wide DASA coordinator for 24-25 as submitted.
I'll second.
Thank you both. Any questions or comments? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain? So moved. And a motion for item number 14, please.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the changes of the Glen Warden Elementary School PTA scholarship in honor of Principal Nicholas Griscone.
Second. Thank you. Anyone have any questions or comments on that? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain? So moved. If I can get a motion, please, to request to establish clubs, items 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20.
I'll move that we approve the request request to establish the Scotia-Glenville Drama Club, the Lincoln Student Council, the Lincoln Sign Language Club, the Glendale Student Council, and the Glendale Craft Club, and the Glen Warden Student Council, all as submitted.
Thank you. Thank you both. Any questions or comments? Excuse me.
I just want to say thank you to all the teachers and staff that stepped up to do these. I'm excited, especially seeing all these elementary. I'm really excited to see that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain? So moved. Can I get a motion for resolution number 21, please?
I'll make a motion that we accept the gift and donation to the high school music programs of the cello and the guitar as submitted.
Thank you. And second?
Second.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain? So moved. A motion for item number 22, the resolution, please.
I'll motion to accept the gift and donation for the Rainy Award as stated.
Thank you. Second.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Anyone have any comments or questions on this one? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain? So moved. Any motion for communications?
I'll move the resignation of Colton Barber as coach for football, the resignation of Robert Lido as coach for football, and the resignation of Brian Fresconi as for retirement purposes. And then I will move staffing 1 through 17.
Thank you, Pam. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Anyone have any comments or questions on any of that? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain? So moved.
I will also move the placement of children with disabilities in the minutes from August 12th as submitted.
Thank you, Pam.
I'll second.
Kim, are there any questions or comments on that?
Can we separate the two? Because I'm going to have to abstain from the meeting minutes because I wasn't in attendance.
Oh, no, that's right.
Andy, me too. I don't think I was
Yeah,
here.
you weren't either.
No.
Yeah.
All right, so all in favor of the placement of children with disabilities?
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain? Passed. And then all in favor of the minutes from August 12th regular meeting?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain?
Nice.
All right.
All right, thank you. Excuse me, other business. Anyone have any other business they would like to talk about?
Are we moving the meetings, the 21st and the 20th, is that a certainty?
Yes, because half of the board will be gone to convention,
Okay.
and then plans changed for other members, so that we'll move the 21st to the 28th.
And will be changed on the website if it isn't already? Okay.
It wouldn't
Wonderful.
be yet, because we just talked about it tonight,
All
but
right.
it will be.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Anyone else have any other business? If not, we will open up the second hearing and privilege of the floor. Again, if anyone would like to address the board, just state your name, address, and give a 5-minute policy, and please refrain from using anyone by name.
Angela Piazza, again, 813 Charles Street. So in regards to the things that we were talking about before with the athletic placement, will you be letting the community know? Like, how does something like that work in terms of you working on a policy? Is it this current board? Do you take feedback from the physician, from the athletic director, parent input? Like, I don't know if you can answer that question now, but I guess we're just wondering how that process works. Is that?
Mrs. Swartz, we had to know that we'll look into that.
Okay.
I believe there isn't a policy now that's on it.
Okay.
That's why I mentioned during our policy portion, we'll make sure that we get with our policy
Sure.
committee.
Okay.
Look at that, take your feedback, look at what other districts are doing.
Okay.
And then we'll be in touch. and
Okay.
respond once we
Okay, we can kind of also do our part and show up and ask questions and.
By all means, feel free to email the board.
Yep, okay.
You can email all of us.
Sure, thank you for clarifying.
Yep, absolutely, thank you.
Sorry to make the night longer for everybody. I didn't know we could speak twice, so now I know. I guess I just really, not knowing that we didn't hear a response from what people said, again, Elizabeth Zenner, sorry, 800 Riverside Ave. I just wanted to make sure it was clear, in case it hasn't been clear in anything that anyone has seen in the public, that there's a real perception that this was the agenda of one or maybe a few people. And that's not just a perception from us on the team, but I've had people come up to me at work who have said, you know, what the heck is going on? Who wanted that guy out? And these are people that are not on the team, they don't have children on the team, they don't even live in the district. They just get the Gazette, or they otherwise somehow knew one or more of the barbers. All the public comment on the various things that I've seen was all in support of the barbers and how great coaches they were, and it's too bad that the kids aren't going to have the same opportunities that their kids did or they did when they were their coaches. And you know, so it's just sort of this big mystery about what happened, why he was not voted in, and it really just, there's a perception out there that one or maybe a couple people were able to voice their concerns, which is absolutely, I mean, we want people to feel free to voice their concerns. But those people who then wanted to support those people had no idea this was happening, and no one was able to support the people who then needed the support. But the people who were upset clearly had the floor and were able to voice their opinions. And no, I did not see anything else online socially of anyone supportive of the decision, except for one person. And that was it. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear, because I wasn't sure if that came out in what Chris and I had previously said, or maybe various emails that you may or may not have gotten, maybe from me. So I just thought I would restate that. Thank you so much for your time.
There's no one else that would like to address the board. We'll close the second hearing privilege of the floor, and I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Second?
No, second.
Thank you. All in favor? Anyone opposed or abstained? So moved. Thank you, everybody.